two, three, four. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to another inspiring session of ACED's Meet the Global Leader series. My name is Rayna Chowdhury, project coordinator at the School of Entrepreneurship Development and a student at Dhaka University. Today, I have the privilege of hosting a distinguished leadership whose work spans strategic communications, public affairs, well being leadership, and social impact. Our guest speaker, Katy Riddick, is the managing director of High Lantern Group, a strategic communications and public affairs consultancy that helps organizations navigate complex challenges, engage stakeholders effectively, and create meaningful social impact. Throughout her career, Katie has worked across multiple sectors, helping leaders and organizations communicate with purpose, build resilience, and drive positive change. Her expertise offers valuable lessons for students, aspiring professionals, and future leaders seeking to make an impact in an increasingly complex world. We're honored to have Katie with us today and look forward to learning from her experiences, insights, and leadership journey. Please join me in warmly welcoming Katy Riddick to meet the Global Leader series.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation. And I love this series. I think it's so valuable to have these conversations at this stage in your career. I love that you do these together. So, Rayna, thank you so much for this time and this conversation.
Thank you so much for your time and your consideration for joining us. And I'm looking forward to this session a lot. I believe I'll be learning a lot from you as a student myself and as someone who is an aspiring young professional, I'd say. So yeah, let's get into it. I think I would like to ask you, Katie, during your university days, what experiences or activities outside the classroom helped shape your confidence, communication, the skills which helped you to be who you are as a leader? What would you say they are?
So, when I was in school, I was at the University of San Francisco and I was studying politics. And there was an opportunity to spend a semester studying in DC. And for the US, DC's kind of the center of all political conversation. I obviously could have spent time in California looking at state level politics, but DC is such an influential place, and I really appreciated the chance to spend a semester studying in DC and then interning in the Senate. And that outside of the classroom, being part of a conversation or part of a learning experience in the Senate was really formative for me, in part because I was able to see so many young people who were doing really important work, and they were also kind of like bartending on the side, and like they were living their lives as they were just out of college and they were writing policy and moving forward legislation and part of these really important conversations. I was in awe of the potential for what was happening in the city and what people could do just right out of college. I knew that I wanted to come back right after school. And so it really took the things I was learning about in school into the world, and made it much more real. And I still remember like coming off the metro every day when I'd go to my internship, and I'd kind of turn the corner and I'd see the Capitol, the US Capitol building, and just thinking, I cannot believe that I have the opportunity to walk into this building and make some small contribution to this work. So yeah, I would say that the kind of practical experience of being in the room with other inspiring young people was really formative for me.
Sounds great. Sounds like something I would really love doing, um, and something that would help us all shape our careers and our views of the real world in certain ways. Because I feel like we read a lot of stuff in books and gather a lot of knowledge, but we don't really get to apply those or see people who are working with these. the moment we see that, I believe it opens our eyes to the new world.
Absolutely. And I think we'll talk about this later, but it was something that it was an opportunity that I saw on a flyer in a hallway in my school. And it was not well advertised. It was not, it was the only person I knew who did this program. And I just said yes, and I took a chance. So we'll talk about taking chances in a little bit, but those chances come around and it changes things when you say yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking back at the beginning of your professional journey, what were some of the biggest challenges or barriers you faced while entering the workforce?
Mm. So I think one of the biggest challenges, and I've given this some thought, is when you're early career, it can be hard to make work feel really exciting and really engaging. Sometimes the things that you need to do, the ways that you need to prove yourself and kind of develop can be doing tedious, hard, boring stuff. We label it like paying your dues or, just putting in the reps to learn things. And it's hard to stay excited. It's hard to stay engaged and it's hard to invest that time and energy when you have so much potential to be distracted and go live your life and do fun stuff outside of work. Um, and so I think one of the challenges that we face is staying focused and um, staying engaged on work and continuing to show up and do a good job and be really trustworthy and reliable and invest not just for the company or for your boss or for your team, but for you to learn those skills and to learn what you need to know in order to be good as you grow and as you get more seniority and more responsibility. Those steps that you take are really important. They can just be really, they can be a bit of a slog. You've got to sometimes knuckle down and just make yourself do it. And that can be hard.
How did you keep yourself motivated? Like, how did you tell yourself, yes, I have to do it when you watch other people have fun?
I mean, I didn't always. I didn't always, and I wish I did. I wish I'd spent more time reading trade press and learning, um, and I think I would have probably gone faster in my career. I think in retrospect, I now know some of those ingredients that would have been helpful. But you learn and you grow and you try to listen to people who've come before you, who tell you what to focus on. But I think I've eventually got there. Um, and then when I needed to, I understood how to go back to the basics and figure out where I was missing gaps and missing knowledge, and I needed to learn something new and just to do the work.
It's very hard to keep myself motivated as I'm doing something while I see other people do other fun stuff. It's really a tough journey.
It is. It is. And I think right now we're at a moment where there are often a lot of technological tools that can be helpful, and um, being willing to explore those tools, being willing to experiment. It's a really special time where we're all learning about the potential together. There's no one in a senior position who may know more than you about how to solve a problem using a technological tool. And so, if you can bring a solution that makes a task slightly less tedious or less, of a time waste, that's a great thing to bring to a team and a valuable skill. So, I think if you're able to bring that curiosity and able to bring that spirit of innovation to those tedious tasks, it comes from understanding the task and understanding how it needs to get done. Um, you can't skip that step, but then you can bring something valuable to the team as well. Maybe
Absolutely,
that can be your
absolutely.
motivation.
That is true. That is true. And it's actually very much an eye opener. It's a way to keep myself motivated, as well as I'm sure other people will also love this advice. So, your career spans public affairs, healthcare advocacy, strategic communications, and well being leadership. How did you intentionally grow across such interdisciplinary fields?
So I would say across my career, the big theme is staying curious. I've been curious about different topics and let myself work in those fields. Um, I didn't let the track that I was on define where I stayed in my career if I wanted to move into something new. But I talk about this with my associates. There are two ways of understanding work. There's the subject matter and there's the process by which work gets done. And the subject matter you can learn and will always be learning. Even if you are an expert in a field, say you're an expert in well-being, you're an expert in brain health, those fields are always evolving. You are always learning new information, or you should be, because that's part of the expertise that you bring, right? You are on top of new and emerging information that comes out. But the process side, how things get done, how you move from A to B, those are cross subject skills. And being able to think through how a process might apply in one area and then translate to another area is a durable skill. So thinking about how you might run a process in government affairs is the same as thinking about how it might apply in strategic communications, how you might run a coalition, how you might engage a group of stakeholders on a project. There are lots of ways that your understanding of a process can be applied across your work to make it happen that aren't tied to the field in which you're working. And that's what makes you effective. And so separating those two and being able to think creatively or make connections between how you know how to get something done and the problem in front of you makes you a lot more adaptable into whatever role you get thrown into and will make you ultimately more successful.
Would you say it's like solving a math problem, taking different routes based on the
Yeah,
context of that situation?
100%. And the key to a math problem is defining the problem. You
Absolutely.
aren't going to solve a math problem unless you know what the problem is in front of you,
Definitely.
right?
Yep. You have to figure
And
out what the problem
often,
is.
yeah, you have to know what the problem is. And often in some of our more abstract, less defined fields, we allow others to define the problem, or we have a misunderstanding of the problem, or we have overcomplicated the problem. And getting at what is the problem that I need to solve is usually one of the first, most essential questions that you ask in any scenario. What is the problem I'm here to solve? What is the problem facing us? And from there, you define a process. And layered on top of that is your subject matter expertise. What do I need to know about this subject that would influence how this process would run? Is there a defined group of stakeholders? Is there some kind of X factor that I don't, that I need to take into account? Is there some kind of special circumstance? Are there regulatory issues? Are there, whatever. But that subject matter expertise is a layer on top of what is the process that solves the problem.
Understandable. Would you say your experience in multiple fields has helped you acquire these knowledge of the process more? You know now better than you did before?
Absolutely. Staying flexible, staying curious, that all helps you think more creatively, think more flexibly about how you engage people. I think it also helps you get a sense of what to anticipate. I think, and I give this advice to young people all the time, working to plan events is one of the best early career jobs that you can have. And if you have the opportunity to volunteer to run like internal events for your company, be like, oh, I'll run our quarterly pizza party or whatever. Events, because they can be so chaotic. And part of what you're doing is anticipating outcomes and creating contingency plans. I mean, pizza parties are fairly low stakes, but maybe something a little higher stakes where you've got speakers or you've got weather considerations or you've got a budget you're managing. I feel like events do one of the best. They're one of the best training grounds for thinking in ways that help you identify if everything's falling apart, how do I fix this so that the people in front of me don't see that things are falling apart? I'm the only one that knows things are falling apart. And I've got everything managed in the background because I've thought of, contingency 1, 2, and 3 that I can roll out. And that kind of flexibility and adaptability translates way past just running an event or running a conference or that kind of thing. That's a very high stakes version of it, but you see it across all kinds of different applications.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Pause for just a second, but I hear you now.
Yeah, I believe I had some sort of network issue. I apologize.
No.
We'll be moving on to the next question. Your career spans, we've talked about your career, how many types of fields you've worked with. You're currently with High Lantern Group. Now, High Lantern Group works at the intersection of strategic communications, public affairs, and social impact. Could you share the mission of the organization and what kind of impact you aim to create with your work?
Sure. So we're a strategic communications firm. We do a lot of corporate communications and thought leadership positioning and communication strategy, but obviously strategic communications. I lead our well-being communications practice. So I focus specifically on how organizations and leaders communicate about well-being in order to create connection, communicate effectively, promote safety, authenticity, and ultimately an environment in which people are more well, whether that's because they are able to more authentically share and support their own well-being or use support systems that are in place, or engage in cultural practices within organizations that promote well-being of the employee population.
That's amazing. That sounds like a great line to work on. As a student, I've seen that you have your degree in political science. As a student of sociology, I'm pretty invested in political science myself. I like to study a bit about that. From my perspective, I'm very fascinated by how communication shapes social relationships. In your experience, how does effective communication influence workplace culture and people's sense of belonging and well-being?
How does it shape their sense of belonging and well-being? I think there are a lot of facets to that. People have a relationship with their employer that is not, it's defined by how you communicate with your employee population. And that's either as an organization or within your leadership. And there's, that can look a lot of different ways. But if you create an environment in which people do not feel like their interests, their goals, their well-being are aligned with the interests of the organization, or the way that the organization talks about their support of well-being, people will develop a certain level of cynicism. They'll develop a certain amount of resistance, and that relationship starts to erode. There's a trust that goes into how you connect to an organization, and it's called a social contract between the individual and the organization. And so a lot of the work that I do is around how do you define the social contract between the employee and the organization, and use the platforms, use the channels you have available to you and the individuals within the leadership usually to talk effectively about that social contract and those interests in a way that is authentic, that is demonstrable within the organization, but also resonates with the employee. So a lot of times we focus on either making people aware of support that's available for their mental health or their well-being, or programs, or we do culture or kind of a development support that is performative, or it can feel performative. And that can be sometimes even more damaging than just kind of than not talking about it at all. If you talk about it in ways that don't feel genuine. Conversely, talking with companies that are deeply invested in their employee population, you see consistent messaging across leadership that includes things like modeling, that includes things like a genuine commitment to well-being that's wrapped around individual performance and aspiration, both inside and outside of work. So people are told that the goal of well-being initiatives and support and cultural support and development support is for them to thrive in the workplace, not for the organization to thrive, but for the people to thrive and do the kinds of work that they want to do. So you see this shift in how the organization is positioning that work as being around supportive of people's individual aspirations for themselves. And there's lots of kind of nuance to how this plays out across these different platforms and across these different speakers who can bring these messages forward. But the role of the organization is to build that trust and that authentic voice, so that when the employee is interacting with the support that's available to them, or they are thinking about their well-being as part of their work life, they feel like they are safe, they are authentically supported, and it is within their interests, not just their employer's interests, to seek out and engage with these kinds of opportunities that are available. So I think the communications role is absolutely essential, because you see organizations put forward initiatives, they put forward support, and then they wonder why people aren't using them. They wonder why people kind of aren't engaging. And it's because the way that they've communicated about well-being, or about this construct between the employee and the employer, hasn't resonated with people, hasn't felt like something that is for them, and that's not something anybody wants to bring into their lives. It's not something they want to engage with. So ultimately, then we're like, well, nobody wants this. Nobody's engaging, and it all kind of falls apart, which is not
It's
helpful. And
about
then everybody,
how you're coming across, if it's genuine enough or if it seems performative just for the sake of it. I guess that's more the essence of it.
yeah,
Now,
it comes. It's like, it's akin to greenwashing. It's this performative well-being that ultimately creates this cynicism, and I think we see a lot of it in the metrics across the global trust index, and then particularly in younger generations and early career um, sentiment analysis, which is just like, my employer is not here for me. And I think that's the result of many decades of poor communication.
true. Makes that is very valuable insights. Actually, that's I was curious about this myself, so I felt like this is a very proper question to ask you. I believe you know so much about this. You've worked so many things around it. In our community, in usual Bangladeshi community, we see that the students, we are mostly focused in our academics. They don't really, now we are performing and participating in soft skills a lot more, gathering skills and outer curriculum knowledges. But even now, it's not that prominent. So, what skills, soft or other skills, would you say students must collect during their academic time, while like side by side with their education?
Yeah. Um, I would say the ability to connect is critical. I mean, oh gosh, I have a whole list. I would say the ability to connect is
Bring
critical,
it
and will,
on.
huh?
Please bring it on. I'd love to know the list.
Okay. I mean, there's always tips, like, if you remember people's pets and their kids, like, people want to work with people they like. And so it will always serve you to be able to ask questions that help you connect with other people on a personal level, especially in a digital world, on a virtual platform. Um, Being able to build connection through these kinds of forums is incredibly important. Um, I would say that we are in a state of constant adaptation technologically. And so being able to maintain your curiosity and your capacity for change, which is absolutely a skill, um, will serve you. I mean, it's not easy, but keeping yourself from getting into a rut, a kind of a habit, and looking for continued um, opportunities for growth, innovation, and adaptability within your field. And then I'd say within that technological advancement, there's the gap that will always be missing from content that is generated, or work that is done that is automated, is a sense of judgment and perspective. And so the human element is, and there's lots of words for it, but it's like, taste or perspective or judgment. All of those things, it's a human element. And so the better you are at developing and defining and articulating your perspective on something, and then putting it into AI to be a content multiplier, or however. But the more you're able to develop and deploy a perspective, I think the more interesting you'll be, and that is compelling.
So it's very it's we must have our own sense of self and personality to add character to our work.
I would say so. Yes. It's very humanizing.
In this era of AI, it is very hard to differentiate between human and AI. Though I would say it's getting harder day by day. It's hard to tell apart which are done by artificial intelligence and which are humanized work. But you've written about balancing AI driven transformation with employee well being. How can
Mhm.
organizations embrace AI without losing the human element?
So I think there are two pieces here. One is that we cannot dismiss AI's role in helping employees have a better employee experience. There is often a need for an agent that sits between the employer and the employee that helps employees navigate what they need and get to the support that they want, or get to the tools that they want, or find the opportunities that serve them. And AI is great at that. Great at helping navigate and triage and define problems and help cut through bureaucracy and ask questions that can help you understand what information is needed and how to fill in the form correctly, and all of those things. AI can be a benefits tool and an employee tool in a way that we are not currently, I think, fully optimizing, which is phenomenal, especially in big bureaucratic organizations and in multi-platform scenarios where you've got complex needs and complex situations. Being able to go in and say, I am, my spouse has complex medical needs and I need caregiving support. How do I navigate and coordinate my insurance and my, maybe this is particularly a US problem, but my insurance and my caregiving resources, and I also need certain disability benefits, and I need, et cetera, et cetera. That is a fantastic application of AI. I think we're also seeing this really important conversation about the actual ROI of AI replacement of people. And I think that feels very threatening for early career people because it feels like companies are trying to use AI to eliminate early career jobs and not hiring for those roles that will give you the skills to be able to advance. And that's both hard for early career professionals trying to build that resume and trying to build that experience. But also, I think we're seeing an important conversation happening where it's really not working for companies either. And they are struggling to get the kind of talent that they need or fill the needs that they have with that approach. It's becoming actually more expensive and less useful to have that happen. So hopefully that's a limited trajectory trend that we have. But I think some of that tension will settle, hopefully, as we start to see where the human role of managing AI implementation becomes or remains an essential part of the employee experience. And then we're able to address what the well-being of people looks like when there's less kind of threatening kind of layoffs and hostile work environment activities happening. I will say that one of the conversations that I have on a very regular basis is that companies are looking for massive transformation around AI, and doing so, they are asking people to be curious and to have a capacity for adaptability that is simply not possible unless people are well. And they will need to address the well-being of people if they want enterprise transformation to be successful. We have seen statistics about sabotage and about active resistance and no small amount of friction in terms of enterprise transformation. And that comes from a lack of support for the well-being of people. So companies that will successfully implement massive large-scale change will be doing it with people who feel safe, supported, secure in their role, and with a defined implementation policy.
Thank you. That is an incredible answer. Actually, this is a very complex topic of the recent world. Let's say you guys didn't have to face this issue early on in your career, I'd presume.
But I think the era of change and then periods of static work process and then rapid change and then static work process, they're over. We will have constant change and technological shifts. And so whether it's me, whether it's people who are more senior than me, or people who are early career, there is no escaping that. And my prediction, I'm not a futurist, but my prediction is that none of us will be immune from having to be capable of changing and learning all the time, because that will be how this plays out.
This stems another question. Changes and career growth require stepping out of our comfort zones quite a lot. Was there a defining moment in your journey where taking a risk or embracing change transformed your career path?
Absolutely. There was a time when I was able to live in England and work in England, and I was hired to work in government affairs for a nonprofit. And they said, we'll teach you about some of the work that the nonprofit did. We'll teach you about the nonprofit worked in Alzheimer's disease, but we want you to run our government affairs program. And I had worked in the US. I understood the US system. I had studied politics in the US. I understood loosely global politics. I'd taken an international politics class, but I did not know the British system. I didn't understand the 4 countries, and I didn't understand how the UK worked. I didn't know who my MP was. I was starting from scratch. I was in, the expectations were high. I was fairly senior, and I was obviously experienced, but I didn't know some of the terminology that they used. I literally bought a book that was like, day 1 as an MP, what do you do? And I still have it. It's so basic, but it was, we were talking about the gaps in your knowledge, and sometimes you just have to go back to the basics. That was my moment, was like, how does a committee work, and how does a legislation get passed? How does the House of Lords work? Who's in it? All of those things I needed to know, and I needed to know it fast, because we were being thrust into this global spotlight because of some kind of exciting things that were happening in the field right at that moment, and I needed to write a strategy for us. And so it was a pivotal moment where I had no idea what to do. I had to go back to the basics and learn as quickly as possible and hope I didn't screw up. And it worked out. It was so much fun. It was really exciting. And sometimes you get those moments, and the best you can do is brace for it and take the risk and do as much as you can to not do a bad job, and hope that you don't. But if you do, if you make a mistake, you'll survive. But do the best that you can to do a good job.
How did you
That was a
convince
hugely pivotal
yourself
moment for me.
that I'm going to do this job in the UK? I'm going to take this big risk, learn everything from scratch at that senior position.
Yeah.
How did you convince yourself to do that? I want to do it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in saying yes. You say yes and figure it out later. It's going to lead to your most exciting opportunities. I also don't believe this might this was not in my notes. I don't believe in imposter syndrome. We talk about imposter syndrome. Everybody gets it. Everybody has it. I don't believe anyone should suffer with it because it shouldn't. You shouldn't let it. You shouldn't let it enter your experience, and you shouldn't ever let it stop you. Everything is figure outable, and you the more you progress in your career, the more you start to see other people figuring out their work alongside you. And suddenly you look around and you say, oh, we're all doing this together. It's not just me. I have felt like an imposter walking into this, this role or trying to do this job. And I thought I was the only one who didn't know what I was doing. And it turns out we're all kind of figuring this all out, and that's okay. And I think I had a slight advantage being an American in the UK, that the assumption was I had no idea what I was doing, and people had very low expectations of me. And they just said, oh, you're American. Clearly we have to explain things to you slowly. And, and so I tried to lean into that kind of lack of experience and ask a lot of questions and try to keep up as much as I can. But, if I could say, no one should have imposter syndrome, to every early career person, because it shouldn't exist, because everyone has it. Everyone experiences that. And as you get further along, you start to look around and just say, this was ridiculous. Why did I waste my energy feeling this way when everyone else is also doing this exact same thing?
This is such an amazing advice, saying no to imposter syndrome. This is the very first time I've heard anyone say it, that they don't believe in imposter syndrome.
I mean, I believe in it, in that I know that people experience it, but you should absolutely reject it.
That's so cool. That's an amazing motivation. I'll tell myself that every day, that if I think I can do it, then I will do it.
You can do it. Everything is figure outable. And you know what? As you think about like the way that you would solve a problem, the way that you would solve it, because you are new to whatever role you're in, might be different than the person who came before you or someone else in that role. And it might be more effective. And that's an asset, not a liability. So wasting your time thinking, I don't know how to do this job, or I don't know, what's happening here, is ignoring the fact that you might bring something to the table that is unique to your experience and unique to your background, that is in fact more valuable than what was previously available. And you shouldn't devalue your experience that way.
I'll definitely keep that in mind, and I'm sure everyone else should as well. This is great. This is great to hear from someone as experienced and as successful as you. We will be moving on to our next question, which is that through your work at High Lantern Group, you help organizations communicate complex and sensitive issues. What makes communication truly impactful and capable of creating real change?
I would say communications is a series of steps. And the steps that make it effective are somewhat universal. We talked a little bit about process versus subject matter. Starting with who are you speaking to? Who is your audience? And then what is their understanding of what you are sharing? And what do they need to understand differently in order to shift their perspective? And by following that trajectory, I think you develop the communications approach that generates real change. I think sometimes we think about communications as putting information out into the world. And given how much information we all are subjected to, I won't even say ingest, but are subjected to, is we're bombarded with every day. We have an excellent filter for rejecting what we aren't interested in, and what is not compelling to us, and finding ways to ignore it. We have to. It's for our own survival. It's for our brains to be able to comprehend how much information is thrown at us at any given moment. And so, cutting through that to make what you have to say compelling and relevant and valuable to your audience takes doing the work of understanding the audience, understanding their understanding, and then generating that message or that evidence or that framing that means something to them. And that's how you create real change. That's how you change or shift a perspective. But it's work. It takes work.
It sounds like a huge amount of work in real life. It's easy to say, but it's hard to do, something like that.
It can be. Yeah. It's also interesting. You learn new perspectives.
We are already at the end, or almost at the end of our session. I'd like to thank you very much for your time and end this session with one last question. If you could leave one message for students who, young professionals who want to build purpose-driven careers, engage globally, create a meaningful career and impact in the society with their jobs, what advice would you give them, and how would you tell them that this is how you connect globally and stay connected to this career path?
I would say your trajectory does not have to be linear. You can move through different paths and still get to places that you love and find interesting and are valuable to you at different parts of your life. But you can create those opportunities for yourself by building your network as early as possible. And so making connections, maintaining those connections, LinkedIn's fantastic, but that's no replacement for even a personal connection. But keeping track of all those people that you talk to professionally, even starting a newsletter, starting a connection point to people that are part of your professional growth and development across all of these different opportunities. You never know how that will feed into the next step that you take. And so assume that people are interested in your success and invested in your success, and let them be part of your trajectory wherever it takes you.
Thank you so much for your amazing words, and I'll try to imply these in my real life so that I want to prospect in my career. And you are an amazing example. Thank you so much for your time. And this session was even more enlightening than I could have possibly imagined. Thank you so
Well,
much,
thank you so
Katie.
much for inviting me.
Thank you. We would like to say our goodbyes. Uh, hope to stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Appreciate